Hello and welcome to the Fall Start Fantasy Podcast with your hosts Cameron and Josh. This week's super special guest, the superest, most special of guests, is the only person who spends more time in the gym than Jalen Hurts. Bandon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I just want to say it is such a great thing to be on this podcast. I watch every single week and it's amazing. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're happy to have you. Josh, how are you doing?
Not too bad.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, we got a couple of matchups to go over, and then we're going to be talking about some standings changes, some waiver weapons, and then we're going to go a little something different. We're going to talk about some college football this week. So it'll be an interesting week for sure. But let's go ahead and jump right into it with my tragic loss this week where the Washington Commanders was my second highest scorer on a team of what I thought were all stars. Bad week all around. I had 5 players on my bench on bye week, so it was not a fun time there. But on the other side of this matchup, Chris did really well. Josh, talk to me. What was the standouts on Chris's team?
Najee Harris is the easy answer for me there.
Mic
He
off.
finally did something this season. It's been a very mediocre to say, put in good terms, but he finally pulled through with a good week for once. So not sure if he can keep it up, but
Mic
definitely a
on.
promising sign moving forward.
Yeah, Bandon, first time on the podcast. Tell me who pops out in this matchup.
Gotta be honest, this is for both teams. It's the defense. The defense always catches me off guard every single game. You never know what to expect, I feel like.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun picking teams to play against Houston and Carolina, and it just happened to be that Chris and I had those 2 teams this week. So definitely some good things there for the future number one and overall and number two overall picks in the NFL draft next year. But we'll go ahead and jump into the next matchup. I wrote Chris versus Josh. That is Sam versus Josh, and Josh giving Sam the business. Sam not having a great week himself, but Josh putting up almost 160 points. Stars all around from everybody but Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. I'm a little concerned, if I'm being honest, about A.J. Brown. With how good the Eagles' defense has been, they haven't needed to put up as many points as we started to see at the beginning of the year. And so I'm a little worried about can A.J. Brown continue to be a wide receiver one. He's had a few down weeks in a row. 9 points is really starting to seem like an average for him, which is definitely not good. But he's still got the talent that we like to see, and Jalen Hurts has been a really good passer. But Josh, talk to me. Who's standing out on your team this week?
I mean, Travis Kelce, the newest addition to the team. That was definitely a good trade on my end. 35 points from a tight end. I've never had that happen before, so that's a nice thing to have because normally I get 0 points for my tight ends, and then Mahomes doing Mahomes things.
Yeah, Bandon, talk to me about Sam's team. Are there some changes in his lineup and things he's going to need to be making, or was this just a down week from a few of his star players?
Well, just looking at the numbers, it just looks like an unlucky week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll go ahead and jump into our third matchup here, and a very tragic loss. Bandon, what happened?
Well, some people just don't meet expectations. It happens. You get unlucky, you get lucky. You never know.
Yeah, starting Daryl Henderson, who was not on a team on Sunday. Talk to me about the strategy behind that. Were you just trash talking? What was the thought plan?
That was just a little lapse in judgment. I didn't happen to pull up the phone in time and get the app open. Um, yeah, that's on me. That's on me.
Yeah, Josh, I want to ask you, Chiefs fan representing MVS put up 2.8 points in a week with no Juju, no Mecole, and Sky Moore suddenly became the target leader from the receivers. What happened? Is MVS just completely unplayable in fantasy now?
I wouldn't say completely unplayable because there's always that chance you're needing a big play. He's still a big play type of receiver. However, with the emergence of Sky Moore and the fact that this offense runs through Travis Kelce and apparently Juju when he comes back, it's a little bit riskier a play. But if you're definitely looking for high upside, you need that one big play. he's worth a shot if you need to.
Yeah, the other side of the matchup, the guy I wanted to highlight the most was A.J. Dillon, and I think every A.J. Dillon owner and Packers fan has known that this guy's been a huge disappointment this year. 3.3 points is really looking like the par. I know the Tennessee Titans have a really good run defense, but they're just not running the ball as much as we would hope to see from the Packers. They're not dumping it down to the running backs other than Aaron Jones, who's getting some, and it's just been really confusing from the Packers. I don't think, unless Aaron Jones is injured, that you can start A.J. Dillon this year, but that's about where we're at with this matchup. A sad .72 point or .78 loss for Bandon. Kyler, though, moving up in the standings, definitely a big win for him. Next matchup we hear is Brandon versus Malachi, and Malachi making a playoff run. He's now number 4 in the standings, and he got a good win for himself here. A little disappointing that Michael Carter only put up 2.7 points, but good week from Hurts and a good week from T. Higgins and Amari Cooper. Josh, talk to me, though, on the other side of this matchup. What's up with Brandon's team?
Oh, Kirk Cousins didn't even have time to think. Usually the defenders were there by the time he got the football, so unfortunate that case. Joe Mixon going out early, Rondale Moore going out early. Nothing you can do there. That happens sometimes. And outside of that, his players didn't do awful, I would say. 6.5 from Cole Kmet. Not a bad week per se for a tight end, but definitely not good. Kind of like an average week for Cole Kmet if you average out his scores anyways. And yeah, other than that, he just got unlucky with some of his players.
Yeah, Bandon, talk to me. Who stands out in this matchup to you?
Oh man, just Kirk Cousins. That Dallas defense was hungry. They were hungry for him. He just couldn't handle it.
Are we starting to see like Patriots versus rookie QBs and Dallas versus non-elite QBs? Like you just gotta avoid that matchup as much as possible. Would you say?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that Kirk Cousins can have those great games as we actually got to see on Thanksgiving, but this was definitely not one of those. Dallas, as a scary team to play, that defense is super, super good, and Micah Parsons is really starting to tear it up, making a case for DPOY. We'll go ahead into our next matchup here where we had Billy giving the business to the number 2 team from the 11 spot, taking out Ethan despite the fact that he traded his soul for Kadarius Toney, who put up 0 points and is now injured, and we'll see if we see him again this season. Josh, talk to me. What went wrong for Ethan's team?
Nick Chubb, he underperformed. He had a bad game. Brian Robinson. That's when you have Antonio Gibson doing his thing. You don't really need to do too much with Brian Robinson. And looking at the rest of his team, it's not like they did bad per se, other than the Vikings defense, but it's not enough to compete with Billy this week.
Yeah, Josh, talk to me. Chris Olave, 21.2 points. That guy has been on an absolute tear. Definitely the best rookie wide receiver, I would say, so far this year. Is this sort of volume and expectations of points really what you're expecting from him week to week moving forward?
I'd say that's more or less just right around where his ceiling is. I think he can hit 25 points on a week, unless there's just a random week where he catches 3 touchdowns, but that's assuming the Saints can throw for 3 touchdowns in a game. But it gives you an idea where his ceiling might be. I wouldn't necessarily say this is what it's going to be, but I'd say anywhere from 15 to 20. That's what you should expect most weeks.
A PPR wide receiver 12 right now, so in that wide receiver 1 spot right now. Bandon, talk to me. What happened with this matchup? Neither person really put up a ton of points, but still a win for Billy.
You know, looking at Ethan, I know he's got Leonard Fournette in his pocket. That's a pretty solid player, if you ask me. And he played the Vikings defense, which, you know, the defense, in my opinion, is always a cherry on top. They can bring a lot of points. It helps me sleep better at night when defenses bring more points. I think that's really just the cherry on top. Ethan got unlucky. He'll bounce back.
Yeah, last guy I want to ask you about here, Deebo Samuel, finally having a great game, 22.4 points. Hallelujah for the Deebo owners. But there's so many other weapons there. Is there really a volume concern for Deebo Samuel and really any of the 49ers offense of players?
No concern here. No concern here. I think the 49ers, they got some good stuff going on.
Led by Jimmy G, he's too handsome to fail. Well, that concludes that matchup. We're moving on to our last one we had here, which was a little bit of a close one, Preston versus Jaden. And it's just heartbreaking to look at this from Jaden's spot. In the last place team, if he started pretty much any kicker or defense, he would have had the win this week, but just wasn't able to pull it out. 98 points, lost by 3. Bandon, tell me, what went right for Preston, what went wrong for Jaden?
Well, me and Jaden, we were hitting the gym every day, and man, every day we'd talk about NFL fantasy, and he's just always in the gutter. He just, I don't know, he's just not having a good time.
As we could definitely tell with that 2-9 record, I'm sure there's a lot of fantasy players out there who have the same one. Josh, though, Preston, I'm seeing a pretty good team there. Ramondre Stevenson has really been amazing. Mark Andrews a little down, but Christian Watson, 21.1 points. Another great week from him. Josh, what are we doing with Christian Watson? Is he a wide receiver 1 now?
I wouldn't say wide receiver 1. He's been touchdown dependent, so typically with a wide receiver 1, you're looking at someone who doesn't necessarily have to rely on touchdowns in that case. It's definitely worth a wide receiver 2 or a flex play, though, at this point.
Yeah, the last guy I want to ask you about, though, Taylor Heinicke put up under 8 points against the Houston Texans, who have just an absolutely awful defense. Is Taylor Heinicke someone you can even start this year anymore?
I think it depends on the matchup. They didn't really need to throw much during this game. They got off to a very quick lead. Naturally, that just means run the football more. So yeah, to me, it just kind of depends on the matchup. He can give you a solid 15 to 20 range kind of points on a good week. So it just depends on matchup.
All right, well, that concludes our weekly matchup review. Josh, talk to me about the standings. What's changing here? What's looking good and who's looking bad?
So top 3 have not changed at all, other than some records there with you and Ethan losing this week. So record-wise, you guys went down, but standing-wise, you guys are still the same. Malachi and Chris, they move up 1 spot each, and a 3-way tie for 4th with our very own Bandon here, dropping all the way down to 6th, but still tied record-wise for 4th. Preston moves up 2 spots in the... See, I mean, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 people there, 4 and 7. Brandon and Sam each moving down 1 spot, so that'll be interesting to see who can make the compensation playoff thing that we have in our league. And then, sadly, Billy, Kyler, Jaden, they don't change at all. And Billy and Jaden are the bottom 2 with... I believe Jaden has been eliminated for sure now, correct?
That is pretty much guaranteed at this point. I believe there's no way that he can win out since there are 3 teams that are 6-5 with only 4 weeks left until playoffs. So I believe Jaden has been eliminated. Billy, miracle run, still alive. He could run it. Bandit, talk to me about these 4-7 teams. We have 4 teams with the same record. Who's your favorite in these?
My favorite has got to be Preston. Preston, he's a little bit of an underdog. You can see he's bringing in enough points, nothing crazy, but he's bringing in enough points. I wouldn't sleep on him.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome looking at all of these because it's all 4-7 teams are either on a win 1 or a loss 1 streak. There's no real active streaks going on here other than Josh with 11 wins in a row, which is about to go down, and Jaden with 4 losses in a row. So really some interesting things happening here in the standings. But we'll go ahead and move on to our waiver weapons segment where we're going to be talking about players who aren't rostered in our league. That's, we can't go out there and tell you who's going to be rostered in your league, but we could tell you who's not rostered in our league and saying, hey, maybe this is somebody you could start this week. And we got to start with the review from last week because a tragic thing happened. Not only did my fantasy team lose, but Isaiah McKenzie was a miss from me, who put up 0 points from the Bills game, which is absolutely heartbreaking because he put up 22.3 points on the Thursday Thanksgiving game. So thank you, Isaiah McKenzie, for completely making me look like a fool and having a great game this week instead. But Josh had a great hit there with Latavius Murray hitting us a RB12, so Josh moves to 5-4. I'm 7-3. And Bandit, are you going to bring those hits up from the guests this week?
Well, we're talking about waiver weapons, right?
We're talking about waiver weapons. Right now, our guests are 1-6. Are you going to have a hit this week?
I think so.
All
I think
right.
so.
I'm excited for it. We'll jump first into Josh's here, though, with Foster Moreau.
Alrighty, Foster Moreau, he's a very unknown tight end. He plays for the Raiders. I remember last year I was counting on him to get me some points one week, and he gave me, I think, 1 point or something like that. I don't quite remember. It wasn't much, but here's the thing. Aaron Waller is hurt. He's out. He's on IR. Naturally, that means someone's got to step up and tight end. The backup was Foster Moreau, so now he steps in. And they are going up against the Seahawks, who have a surprisingly very dangerous offense at times. So naturally, that means you're probably going to have to throw. Seahawks suck against tight ends. Should be a shoe-in for a decent week for Foster Moreau.
All right. Well, there's Foster Moreau, a tight end streamer for you here. Next, we have my selection this week, which is Demarcus Robinson, who has actually been a really interesting player on the Ravens. Obviously, coming from the Chiefs the last few years, and now on the Ravens, he's really trying to step up and make that wide receiver one case for himself, as it's a pretty open season there, as Rashad Bateman went out with the injury. So it's kind of up to the rest of the team to stand up. And Demarcus Robinson's really that speedster that Lamar Jackson's cannon of an arm can hit. And so on those deep spots, he can definitely be open. But he's being used in a really efficient way. And he's, over the last 3 games, has averaged 7 targets per game and catching almost all of them. So I like Demarcus Robinson this week versus the Jaguars, which is the worst secondary that the Ravens have played against so far this year. And lastly, we'll go into Bandon's waiver weapon.
Jacoby Brissett. Yes, I watch a lot of Flight Reacts, and Flight Reacts sometimes watches the Cleveland Browns. So
Okay.
I yeah, I watch Jacoby Brissett a lot. He's kind of a weird one to look at. I think he kind of lacks a little bit of confidence. He's not very confident in his throw. It just kind of seems when the Browns are moving down the field, they're just kind of hoping for a first down, not really looking to attack the end zone sometimes. Um, Jacoby Brissett, I think he could develop a little bit. I think he needs a little bit of development, but we'll see. He's a hit or miss. I'm not really sure which one he'll be.
Well, it's his last week as the starter, as just next week against the Texans, Deshaun Watson will be there. So last time you can start Jacoby Brissett with confidence at least. But that concludes our waiver weapons of the week. And now we're going to talk a little bit something special. We're going to talk about some college football. So this week tonight, KU and K-State are playing each other. It's an interesting game. Right now, K-State is favored by 11.5 points, and I'm going to throw it right to you, Josh. Tell me, what's going to be the most important part of this matchup?
I think for K-State, it's going to be their defense completely shutting down KU's offense. I don't have concerns about KU's defense. No offense there, Cam. They kind of do suck right now because of injuries. But offensively, that's where KU's been able to stay in games. K-State has a defense that's at times top 2 in the nation, it feels like. And then at times they're like, oh, you just want to run right through us? Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll just let you go right through for 5 yards, and then we'll try to tackle you. So it comes down to the defense, K-State's defense versus KU's offense, I think, tonight. If K-State can shut down that running game, easy pickings.
All right. Well, I have there a couple of the different betting odds. Bandit, I'm going to throw to you first. K-State is favored by 11.5 points. If KU wins, that means that they hit the under on that. Josh and Bandit, give me your takes. Where's the score going to end up? Is K-State going to win by 11.5? Bandit, I'll throw to you first.
I think K-State will win by a little more than 11.5. I couldn't agree with Josh more. It'll come down to defense. KU is capable of making some big plays that you're not expecting. Sometimes getting a running back through your defense and having them go for 40 yards. It'll all come down to defense.
Josh, where are you standing on this?
Meme-wise, Cats by 90. Outside of the memes, realistically, I'd say K-State wins by, I'm going to say 24 in this case. I think they're going to destroy KU tonight. I'm being completely
Holy,
honest.
holy cow, 24 points. I say there's no way. Will Howard, the K-State absolute legend, is not healthy. He apparently was sick all last night in fear of the KU defense. So he's not going to be the guy. If he's going to be playing, he's going to be hampered. And so KU is definitely going to win this game. It's going to be by at least 11 and a half points. They're going to win by 12. KU is going to win this one for sure. Right now the total's at 62 and a half, so that's 32-31 final score looking like. What are we thinking it's going to be a high scoring game like that? Or Josh, I'll throw to you first. Do you think it's going to be lower scoring because KU won't be able to stand up against K-State's defense?
It'll be high scoring for one team. I can tell you that much.
KU rock chalk.
Emaw. Down, little brother. Um, realistically, I can see this game being like a 40-17 type of game or somewhere along those lines. And I still think K-State's going to win by 24, so that math does not check out now that I do it in my head, but you get what I mean. It's going to be KU will get some points, K-State's going to be in the 40s.
Okay, so you're taking the under on that? On the 62 and a half total?
Yes.
Yes. Bandon, where are you at on that?
I couldn't agree with Josh more. I think the total is right on the dot, 62 and a half. I think K-State's going to show out. I don't know how well KU's going to do.
I'm also going to take the over on this. I think once KU gets the lead, they're just going to keep piling up points until they have 62 and a half themselves. But the last thing I have here is Deuce Vaughn, future Chiefs running back. Next year is going to go in the first round for the Chiefs. 109 and a half total yards. Are you guys over or under on that one? Bandon, I'll throw to you first.
Over, but I want to hear what Josh has to say.
That's an easy over for me. I think he's going to have more than that just on the ground alone. That's not counting his receiving work. Realistically, I can see him having anywhere from 160 to 200 yards total today, depending on who's QB, because I haven't heard whether or not Adrian Martinez is playing yet or not.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting there. I am also going to take the over on this. I think Deuce Vaughn is literally one of the best running backs I've seen in a long time. I understand the people who like Bijan Robinson, but I love watching Deuce Vaughn. I've watched him for now 3 years, and that guy's just super awesome. I know he's going to get 110 yards against KU, but he's not going to score any touchdowns because KU's going to get the ball from him over and over again. But that is the KU versus K-State matchup preview. The next thing I had in here was a little bit of college football news. K-State wins this game. They're going to the Big 12 championship versus TCU. I was talking to my family. They were saying that K-State's going to win that, and they're all KU fans. Josh, are you thinking they would beat TCU if they made it to the Big 12 championship?
It's tough to beat any team twice, and I don't think TCU is capable of beating us twice. We nearly beat them at third place in prime time, essentially. That's with us losing our starting QB in the first quarter, and at one point getting down to our third string QB. So I don't think they'd have a chance. I think, well, I won't say that, but I think we'd beat.
How about you, Bandon? If K-State is in the championship, are they beating TCU?
Most definitely. I think Josh was on the dot.
Well, it would definitely be a heartbreaking loss for TCU because I think if they lose the Big 12 championship, they are not making it into the college football playoffs, which would obviously be pretty sad for them there. But definitely will be a very good matchup. I love how the Big 12 has looked this year. I love that KU football has not been a dumpster fire like it always has been. So definitely been a lot of fun rooting for them. The other thing I have to ask Ohio State and Michigan are playing right now. Let me look up the score.
24-20 Michigan.
24-20 Michigan, 11:45 in the third quarter. Who do you guys think is going to win?
I hope Michigan wins it. I think they will win it. this is one of those, honestly, I'd say just flip a coin and whichever side it lands on will win. I think they're that evenly matched. However, I hate Ohio State, so go Michigan.
Bandon, what are you thinking?
I think Ohio's going to pull this one off.
Yes,
I think
sir.
Michigan's got a heck of a run game. They absolutely pummeled Nebraska with it, but I think Ohio's going to pull this one off. They're just more explosive.
Yeah, we were looking at this last night at our Thanksgiving celebration, and Ohio State won something like 7 in a row until Michigan beat them last year. I think that's got Ohio State fans and their players pretty fired up for this one. It's a real close one. I can't wait to see who ends up winning this one, but I am also going to be taking Ohio State. And last thing I had to talk to Bandon about as the big Nebraska fan. Talk to us. What's up with the Cornhuskers, and how much are you, or how excited are you about Matt Rule?
Cornhuskers just signed Matt Rule. I'm very excited about it. A lot of Cornhusker fans are, I don't know, they're not a big fan of it. They think Mickey Joseph should have been, uh, head coach. I think that would just been for the fans. We're looking at getting some wins here. We got to take some chances. All a Nebraska fan can do right now is believe.
Are you trusting the big end there, the knowledge?
I trust it.
All right. Josh, where are you standing? I know NFL fans, we are not the biggest fans of Matt Rule, but think he'll be better back in college.
Yeah, I think now that he's back in college, he'll be perfectly fine. I remember when he took after Art Briles there at Baylor. Had a rough first year and a half or so. His second year, I think they came close to bowl eligible, or they did become bowl eligible. It was one of the two. They're right on that line. His third year, they were playing for the Big 12 championship. So I think give it 3 years, Nebraska won't be quite back to glory days, Nebraska, but I think they'll be at least bowl eligible ones.
Yeah, it would be nice to see Nebraska really becoming Nebraska again, but it's fun to hate on them as all my coworkers are Nebraska fans, so I like to watch them lose. You guys have anything else you want to talk about college football?
Nothing for me.
Aw.
Every man a wildcat. All right, well, that concludes this week's episode of the All Star Fantasy Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find Josh on Twitter at Josh Newshafer, and you can find me at Cameron's Ego. Bandon, I understand you do not have a Twitter. That's correct?
Correct, sir. No Twitter, but hey, follow me on Instagram, Big Boy Bandon.
Big Boy Bandon on Instagram. You can look at his absolutely massive muscles. He's living at the gym. If you want to follow him, you can do that on Instagram, or just go to the gym and follow him there. Well, that does it for this week's episode. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
Go Chiefs.
Jalen Hurts, let's work out sometime.
All right, I'll make sure our producer gets on that when we get a producer. But thank you guys so much for being on here, Bandon. Thank you for being our super special guest. It was great having you on here. We will be back next week before week 13 begins, so be on the lookout for our next episode so you can be ready before the ball is snapped. Thank you, and goodbye.